So, John, how did you get involved in basketball?
I was through, you know, one of your schoolmates sort of thing. He said, come down to the youth centre and have a go at this basketball. And I said, oh, I'm not going down there to play some Sheila's game. And you sort of think basketball in those days was the Sheila's game. So anyhow, he finished up dragging me down there, and that's where it all started. I thought, gee, this is not too bad. I've got to have a bit of a go at this.
Where was that?
That was at the Kensington Town Hall, just near, not far away from the showgrounds, where we eventually got into courts and stuff like that playing.
Oh, so you were at the showgrounds too? Did
Yeah.
you used to live over that way?
Yeah, I lived at Kensington, right at Kensington.
So you started playing, what, as a junior, or you were already an adult?
No, I was a junior, 14. 14 was the first commencement and introduction to basketball. Just went out there and stumbled away around and sort of learned how to dribble pretty quickly and attempted a few shots and stuff like that, and then it all went from there.
Because a few of the like members, like Della Hilberg, a few of us, is that where basketball started, at the showgrounds? As far as
there was a lot of basketball. My first, just prior to that, which would have been the 56 Olympics, because I got interested in that, and a lot of basketball was still being played at the exhibition building, our main exhibition building.
Yeah, in the Sydney.
Yeah, and I remember going in there, I think it was just after the Olympics in 56, and sort of saying, oh, is this where they all play their sort of main games, which they were doing, because there was no such thing as stadiums or anything like that. And of course the showgrounds being sort of, what would you say, reasonably central, that they had the facilities there in the way of the dog pavilion, the industrial hall of whatever it was called, and that, so there was court size positions that basketball could be further developed in those very early days.
So what was it, timber floors? Concrete floors, dirt floors?
One was the industrial hall in the showgrounds, then was a lovely wooden court with, you know, low roof, small sidelines and stuff like that. The dog pavilion, you always liked to throw downhill in the second half because of the slope of the court. That was a bitumen court.
Oh, yeah.
Because as you can imagine, being the dog pavilion with cages and stuff, there was always accessible to be hosed down after the shows and stuff like that. So it was always better to go down the hill because we tossed. We had a toss before the game, you know, you never hear of it today sort of thing. Yeah.
No way. So how far did you go with playing?
Played with CYMS, but more, when I say played there, I was just a bench player in that.
In the men's divisions?
Yeah.
Alright, good. So, alright, you're playing. What about officiating? So how did you get involved in officiating?
Well, I was that short of officials and that, and I guess some of the older people would remember this fellow by the name of Teddy Evans, and he was one of our referees, what would you say, a senior referee as in domestically when I think back to those times. And he sort of had, one eye used to go that way and the other one was sort of alright. But it was a character within himself, and the poor bugger used to be working half the time on his own. And he just said to me one night, would you like to help out, just blow the sideline, which was virtually the walls and that. And I said, yeah, I'll have a go at that, and started blowing when the ball went out of bounds.
Yeah. How has basketball officiating changed?
Oh, it's a lot, because we had the fortunate thing when I look back on it of having Henry, and who was a top official internationally, as I learned in those early days prior to just going through the school. And he had a hand on good things, and where the officiating come from, we think this is right type of thing, and that he had a rule book that was full of extra cutouts and things like that that he attached to it when he was able to get some information via the shipping lanes of the world sort of thing. There was no high communication, and he used to stick it in the rule book, so he was always up to date with the rules.
As far as referees are concerned, who are some of the referees that stand out in your career and why?
Oh, well, there was one standout referee to me who was shoulders above everyone, and this is not, I'm talking internationally here, this is a fellow, and you might have even seen him yourself, because I'm sure he was out here at least once or twice, Al Ray from Canada. He was, just to see him officiate in that, it was excellent, because jeepers, I seen him do some games that were shit. excuse the expression, because that's what they were, but he handled them like, you know,
As in, ugly games, tough games.
ugly games, really ugly games, because you could imagine the European bloc of countries, the communist countries and all this, and the political stuff that used to go on with it and everything like that, with fights and chairs and stuff getting thrown onto the court, and in a bad way, you know, but he handled it with aplomb. He amazed me, that man. In Championship League, that you communicate with, like you and I are communicating with now, and have a bit of laugh, and one might sort of say like, gee, say that was a shit call. I said, yeah, it was like that bloody shot you had there, you didn't even hit the ring. You know,
you do that.
Yeah, and and that's where it'd finish. You'd have a bit of smile and get on with the game. Yeah.
No, it's good. You got to the top, John. Like, you went to the Olympics. How did you get to the top? Like, how did you, way back then, we've got processes now, to get your A grade, your B grade. So how many Olympics did you go to?
4.
Where were they? And when were they?
Started in '72 at Munich. Where we go to then Montreal, Moscow and Los Angeles.
And were you the only Australian referee that went, or who did you go with?
No, there was, going back to the last one in Los Angeles, Eddie came as the appointed referee for the women's, because they qualified. And look, I'm not really sure with the ones before that, because Moscow was 80, and Moscow was a real deal, because that's when all the controversy came in, you know, as to whether Australia sends a team even, you know, and the basketball was heavy. Oh, what are the basketballs? What are they doing? Are they going to send a team? And the pressure was really on it. As a matter of fact, I can record it here now and that. Because even Mary at home, because when you think of our family and stuff like that, she was getting a bit of pressure put on her to say, oh, is your husband going to be going to Moscow? You know, what's going on there? Why is he going to Moscow if he's going to go if the basketball team goes? So it was amazing that she was feeling the pressure from outside.
And it was that big?
It was that big. It was that big. And I sort of felt for her about it, because, you know, why pick on her? Like, you know, we had an open phone number at the time and everything like that, and I thought, shit, you know, that's pretty bloody rough. They should have a go at me if they think anything about it, because to me I was only interested in the sport, which
no politics.
Yeah, no politics. That's right. Yeah. So yeah, that was a bit of a tough one, you know, as in so much as that I felt for her about it, you know, because always that I had her full support. She never ever stood in my way, and that it was terrific.
Good. At the Olympics, you were able to get into the medal rounds?
Yes, yeah. I had 2 bronze medal games.
Oh, and who were they?
There was one in Montreal, and then it was funny, as I recall now, again I stand corrected, I think they were both the same teams that I had at that time. Yeah, it was Russia and Canada.
Oh, really?
And the last one I had or the one that I had in Moscow caused a change of the rules.
Oh, really? How come?
Caused a change of the rules. Because would you believe it, from memory I'm about 10 or 15 minutes into the game, and I thought some bugger shot me in the bloody leg here. I went down like a bag of spuds, and I'd pulled a calf muscle.
Oh, really?
And I got up, you know, of course, needless to say, the game was stopped and everything like that, and I thought, what are we going to do here and that, and I got up and tried to, I couldn't walk, you know, when
let alone run.
Oh, let alone run and that. So with that, just prior to that particular match, all the referees had gathered for a big photo, so they were fine. So they made a decision here, which was correct, in my opinion, but it wasn't as per the rule book at that particular time. So they got someone out to replace me out on the court.
Oh, good. So you went to World Championships, so you've done it all?
Yeah, and in amongst those there too, and it refreshed my memory, and I'll give you the book to read, because it sort of jolted me, and undoubtedly a lot of stuff happened after it, because I was appointed to Puerto Rico, and I can only go by this because it's in the book. and I think they said the year was 74, and I was the referee, got the notification, we were excited, we were living at Seaford at the time and that, because they thought that, you know, whether I'd go, because I'd been to 72 at Munich and everything like that, got the official notification, just going to tie up everything for work, and then it comes before the committee down here, where what was it, the Basketball Union, I think they were called then, the Australian Basketball Union, got together and that, and my own state stood up and canned me. And
Victoria did?
And they replaced me.
They didn't want you to go?
They said I wasn't, I'll give you the book to read it, or just the words of it in a minute.
Unbelievable. So who went in your place?
I said Taylor.
Good. Alright. Through your career, you must have funny memories. What's the funniest memory, or some of the funniest memories you can recall throughout your career?
Well, I guess probably refereeing up in Darwin was always interesting because you had so many of our native people.
What did you do up there?
Refereeing.
For Championship Darwin or?
Yeah, I done like anything. They were just starting to develop more, and I had contacts up there from previously, and they said, what about coming up for the, I think it was originally for the Arafura games, they have those on.
Yeah, I've been there to ref them once.
Okay, yeah,
Good
well,
venue.
you know, yes, really good.
Good fun.
And also I was up there for, I think it could have been their national titles, not that long after Cyclone Tracy had gone through, was my first trip up there. And because we had people who had lived in, say, South Australia and a couple from Victoria who'd moved up there prior to Tracy, in the way of work, and you know, that's where we want to try this other part of the world, and knew my situation with refereeing, said, are you available? And it all started up there. But going up there, particularly with the ladies, and they said, hey listen John, you know, you're not refereeing top basketball there or something like that, you've got to be a bit lenient, because they said they mightn't want to play with runners on and socks on and shirts on and everything. I said, oh, all right. Well, like I said, we've got to draw the line somewhere, because they were virtually sort of putting me in charges to sort of say to the other referees, this is what we've got to do. So I said, no, all right, no, because some of them were coming from outback stations, Maningrida, Port Keats, and all these sort of different places. It was beautiful, though. But the part of that which was probably a little bit embarrassing at first, but funny when I think about it after, because when you're refereeing the ladies' teams and everything like that, it was nothing for them to come off, have a quick sub, because the baby was there and the baby there, the shirt would go up and bang, you know, quick feed and back, suddenly back, oh, Jesus, what's going on, what do I do?
What do I do here?
What do I do here? So,
what about your most memorable game? What's the game that you are most fond of or proud of?
I reckon the one between Italy and Yugoslavia in Montreal. That was a tough game, and I felt you never like to put your other officials down or anything like that, but I felt I was alone, and two-man officiating, and when there was from memory, a 21-point turnaround from half-time from a team, Italy were up, and they got done by a point. And I had, I think, I might have been pairs of shoes out on the court, a telephone book, and a few other things. A police escort off the court to get me down to the rooms and everything like that. It was, but I was proud of it.
Good.
Yeah, it was tough. You know, two-man in those times, if you didn't have somebody working with you. And I seemed to be the person calling the fifth foul or the disqualifying. Like, you didn't mind because you knew you were right. But you knew, you know, in a packed Olympic stadium with those two type of teams, it was really, I'll never forget it as long as I live.